Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have actually had a lot of questions sent to me about this subject and about the pros and the cons, and that is about shared ownership schemes in the UK for new build properties, specifically for new build properties. One of these does cover older properties as well, but specifically for new build properties. We have done both of these schemes, and I'm just talking from our experience. I am in no means a financial advisor of any kind. I do not work for any of these companies. I just got experience of having done these schemes. So first up, what is shared ownership? So shared ownership is where you buy a share of a property. Now usually that ranges from 40% to 100%, and you can staircase up to 100%. There are many different companies and housing associations and builders and banks who offer these schemes. We have only ever done it through a housing association, and now we're doing it through a builder who is connected to a housing association. A bit confusing, but I will explain. So the properties that you buy on a shared ownership scheme or a home stepper scheme, which is the same thing, are leasehold until you own 100% of the property. Now this isn't for all properties. If you were to own a flat, this would not change. You would still be leasehold. However, if you were to buy a house or a coach house, when you staircase to 100%, that leasehold becomes your freehold. So, on to our experience. In case you're wondering why I'm looking down, I have like a notepad full of everything, like all the details, because there are a lot of details to kind of share and to chew over, because they can be very, very confusing. So our first home, we couldn't actually afford to get a mortgage that we needed. Now we wanted to purchase a 2-bedroom coach house, which is basically a flat with no one below us and no one above us. So it would initially be leasehold, and then we would own the freehold to the property. We chose to go through a housing association for this directly. So we went through directly a housing association. They were called Greenfields at the time, but now I believe they're called Eastlight Housing, and they were great. I have to say, we didn't have any issues from the first day to when we sold the property. So how it worked was, we contacted them, said we were interested in buying a property on one of their new developments in a particular area as to where we had connections to. So my parents live within the district, I used to live within the district as well. I worked round there, my husband worked round there. So we had ties to the area, and that is usually how it works. You have to qualify to live within the area through some means. So as I said, we went to speak to them, we sat down with them in their office, they went through some plans, they showed us what they were going to have coming up, what they already had coming up, what they'd sold already, how the process works. Now this is so important, is that you ask them so many questions, and that you go with a list of questions as well, because guys, it's so overwhelming when you're seeing all these plans and you're getting so excited, especially if it's your first home. You are so excited. You just want to look at the plans, you want to look at all the exciting things. You do have to take a step back, take a breather, and actually evaluate whether or not this scheme is for you. So we actually saw some plans of a flat in a block, and then they recommended to us, because we told them what our plans were in the future, that we wanted to start a family, etc. They actually recommended that we went for a coach house. It's slightly bigger, it has better storage, no one above or below, so you don't have to worry about the noise, the heat, etc. And it has a balcony, which the others didn't, and it had parking underneath, which we were sold on. I wasn't completely sold on the property, however, I knew if I wanted to move within that area, there had to be some kind of compromise, and that for me was the compromise. Although, honestly, it really wasn't a compromise. I miss that flat so much. I miss our coach house so much. I loved it. I loved the layout. I loved the size of the bedrooms. The only thing was, it just wasn't big enough for us as a family now. Sorry, my camera died, I'm back again. So I can't remember where I left off, but we then went to, after we paid the £50 reservation fee, because there was 2 left, we went to view a similar, or actually identical property on the same development that was empty. So it wasn't a show home, it was just an empty shell property with just the floors that came included, just the kitchen that came included, ready to move into, but basic. And we loved it. When we went in there, we knew straight away that the space was right for us, the way it felt was right for us. Yes, there was a few compromises there, but it had plenty of storage. Our coach house had more storage than this 4-bedroom house does. And it was insane, the storage, it was incredible. We loved it. The size of the bedrooms were great, the bathroom was lovely. The only compromise was it was a kitchen, living room area, open plan. Didn't really like that, but it was livable and that was just a compromise. So after that, we then instructed solicitors, got a mortgage offer. Sorry, we actually got the mortgage offer before we viewed that property. We instructed solicitors and then went through all of that palaver as you do with solicitors, because you know they're a barrel of laughs, aren't they? I apologise if you are a solicitor. I guarantee you're a good one. The ones we used for that were not. So please pick wisely with solicitors. Don't go with the cheapest ones because honestly you will regret it. So after we had gone through all of that, the house was built and we collected the keys. And that was so exciting. So we actually went to Greenfield, as they were called at the time, office, and we collected the keys from them. And we went on to our new property. So as I said previously, you could buy a share from 40% and then staircase up to 100. You can buy whatever share when it's a new build. When it is a second hand home, I don't know what you call them, a pre-loved home, not a new home anyway, you have to purchase the share that the person had before. I don't think you can change. That was definitely Greenfield's rules at the time, because they did resell properties. But yeah, no, that was definitely the rule at the time. So before you can get the keys or instruct solicitors, you go through financial checks. So they instruct their financial advisor and they go through what percentage you can afford to buy. So the property of our flat was £225,000 initially, back in 2000 and end of 2017. Beginning of 2018 we moved in. End of 2017 it was £225,000. So we needed to show them that we could afford to pay for the property, and they would work out the percentage we could afford, the maximum percentage. So what I would say is, if you do not want to buy the maximum share you can afford, go through your own financial advisor and then tell them, make sure you tell them what you want to buy and what you don't want to buy, because the housing association will make you purchase the maximum share that you can afford. So our current home, we moved in, we got the keys just before Christmas 2023 and we moved in February 2024. The reason for that is we were staying with my parents and Rosie was just really unsettled and it just wasn't the right time to move in, so we just stayed there for a little bit longer while we were moving the stuff in, etc., from storage, and that worked really nicely. We did Home Stepper with this house. Now Home Stepper we actually did via the builders who are connected to a company called Sage Housing or Sage Homes, which is also a housing association, but it's a little bit different. So with our first home, you didn't get to pick any of the interiors, you bought the house directly through the housing association. With this, you buy it as you would a normal property, so you get to pick your kitchen, you can purchase upgrades, get the flooring, etc. Now, we couldn't afford to get a mortgage on this house. We just couldn't. I've gone back to work part-time after having Rosie and we were going to have to commute. We've moved quite far away for the benefit of our child. It's just a nicer area. It is a cheaper area as well. We have moved further out, but we don't regret the move 1 ounce. We're far away from family, which it sucks, but it is what it is for the time being and we really love living here. Apologies, a bit of a change of angle here, but I need to have the camera plugged in because it just doesn't want to work today. So we were looking for a property around this area and we could afford a lot more in this area as to where we were living before. We used to live in Essex, just by Stansted Airport, and within the time that we had lived at our previous property, the house prices had gone up astronomically. We made £100 equity on our flat. So with that in mind, we decided to pack up and move further away, and have a look to see what we could get, which is where we came across this property. We'd seen a few in different areas around this area, but this village ticked every box we had, and it just kind of all fell into place. So we popped into the sales office thinking, you know, we could get a 3-bed, just 2-3-bed, just purchased outright, without home stepper, without shared ownership, anything like that. And then we went online and we actually saw that they had this property, which is a 4-bed detached with a garage, for not much more than what we sold the flat for, and available on home stepper. Now, although we made £100 equity on the flat and we would have money to put down as a deposit again, with me going back to work part-time after having Rosie, there is no way we would have been given a mortgage even for the same amount the flat was worth. Which is crazy, right? Because you've proven that you can pay that. So what we decided to do was to go down the home stepper route. Shared ownership, but directly through the builders. We popped into the sales office, we discussed it with them, and we bought through Linden Homes, which I have to say have been incredible. The last new build we had was awful, was absolutely awful for things that had gone wrong. This house, it is incredible. It is. There's been very, very minor snags that have needed sorted out. And other than that, they have come around so quickly to sort them, I can't complain. So we found the property, we spoke to the sales office, they got in contact with the shared ownership company and with their financial advisors. They asked us to instruct a financial advisor of our choice, which was free, which was completely free. They foot the bill for that. We did that, we went through all of that. Again, we went through all the affordability checks to find out what we could buy. Again, we were told by the financial advisor to only tell him what percentage we wanted to buy maximum. Because if we were able to afford to buy a bigger percentage, that's what he would have to go with. So that's what we did. We said, oh, we would like to buy a no more than a 70% share, because otherwise it would be too much for us to deal with at this time of our lives. Not to say we won't staircase again to 100%, but that's what we'll do. So he crunched his numbers and everything, and he came back and said, okay, well, we can do 69%. I was like, okay, great, no problem. We managed to get we didn't get a Halifax mortgage, who we were with before, so we ended up having to pay a penalty to leave them, which was £10,000. £10,000 we had to pay Halifax to get out of our mortgage. Which is just, it was heart-wrenching, because that £10,000 could have paid for my child to have lovely things. It could have paid for my child to go on holiday. It could have paid for better food for us. It could have paid for all sorts of things. My child to go to clubs, to go and do dancing, to do what she wants to do. But no, ended up in the hands of a bank, which, let's face it, already thrive on our money. Ran over. We had got our mortgage in principle through the financial advisors, and they had advised us on the best one to go with. It was ultimately our choice, but we ended up going for another fixed mortgage from what they recommended and what they think the market would be doing. So that was all sorted, we were all good to go, which then meant we could reserve this property. Now, we wanted this particular plot because it was on a cul-de-sac. It is the same process as buying from a shared ownership scheme, on a home stepper scheme, if that makes sense, apart from you get to pick all the bits as you would a normal house. You still purchase it through the show home, you still go and you talk to the people who built the house, you do a meet the builder appointment, everything like that. First, then you would pay rent on the share that you do not have a mortgage on. So the remaining 31% we do not own, we pay a small amount of rent. And I mean, do you know what, guys, it is really reasonable. And with the way mortgage rates are at the moment, if you wanted to buy somewhere but you didn't want to rent, but then you couldn't afford to buy all of it, it is just so good. It just gives people a step onto the ladder, and then you can buy it out, the rest of it. So let's talk about staircasing, which is a big part of shared ownership. So shared ownership is where you can purchase, again, up to 100%. So you can staircase, and you can buy these percentages in 25% increments for most places. However, I wouldn't suggest you doing that. I'd suggest you doing it in one when you can afford to, because each time you do it, you have to fork out for solicitors and financial advisors. So if you can, just wait and save up until you can afford to buy the rest of it on a mortgage and do it that way. So the first step to buying the rest of your property is to tell whoever you own the other share with that you would like to purchase the remaining share on your property. They then send someone around to get a valuation, you get someone around to evaluate the property, and you go down the middle, or you pick, I mean, it's up to you what you put it on the market for, because ultimately when you sell it, what you put it on the market for, basically, if that makes sense, because you don't want to buy the rest of it for too much and then you're never going to make that money back. You accept the valuation, and then you get an AIP from the bank, which is an agreement in principle for the remaining share. Now, this will not be part of your original mortgage. This will be a second mortgage product. You instruct solicitors as you did before, then you exchange, you complete, you stop paying rent, and if you get a leasehold which can be a freehold, you will then transfer to a freehold. Sorry, lots of distractions in this video. Rosie just woke up from her nap, so I had to go and see it to her, which is all good. So, home stepper versus shared ownership. This is a tricky one. I'm going to list the pros here and here for each one. I don't know if I'll be able to put the text in. I'm not that good at editing yet. I'm getting there, but I'm not that good. So, home stepper versus housing association, sorry. Pick interiors, home stepper yes, housing association no. Comes with flooring, home stepper no, housing association yes. Although some home stepper deals do come with flooring, it just depends on the builders and the site that you are looking at. You can buy an older property, home stepper no, housing association yes. Snags direct with the builders, this is a big one. So any house that you buy, whether it's old or new, is going to have snags, which are issues that need addressing within the property. So whether that's painting, whether that's a leak radiator, I don't know, a window that doesn't shut properly. Every property you buy is going to have a snag of some kind. The difference with a new property is, on home stepper scheme, you can contact the builders directly and they will come around and fix it for you. On housing association, it doesn't quite work like that. So you have to contact the housing association, they contact the builders, or they send around their people to fix it for you. So it's a bit different. I would say the home stepper is easier in that sense, a lot easier. Can you pick your plots? Home stepper, yes. And also housing association, yeah, you can. You can pick a particular property depending what is available. Housing associations tend not to have very many plots available, so it's whatever's left is the pick of the bunch, basically. Bigger house, you could buy a bigger property. Home stepper, yes. Housing association, no. What I mean by a bigger property is housing associations usually only offer 1, 2, 3 beds on shared ownership, whereas home stepper, we managed to get a 4 bed, and they had quite a few 4 beds. They probably got up to about 4 bed on home stepper schemes. Upgrades available. So upgrades, I mean, like, you can upgrade your kitchen, you can have more plug sockets put in if you want to, you can have a shower over the bath if you have an extra bathroom, tiling, that kind of stuff. Home stepper, yes you can. Housing association, no. It is how it comes, and you will have to ask for permission to do anything to the property. So I'm going to round this up with overall pros and cons. In my opinion, I'm not talking from anyone else, but from me and from what we have experienced as a family with both of these schemes. Please, please, please do not take what I am saying as this is the way it is, because it might be different now. Things might have changed with housing associations. This was like 6 years ago. So please just make your own judgment. These are just my own opinions and experiences. So, my trusty notebook again. The overall pros and cons. Pros. You may not, and this is for both of the schemes, I must add, you may not have to pay stamp duty right now. Or it could be a very reduced stamp duty. So you only pay stamp duty on the share that you are buying. You can pay it all. You can pay it all. You can pay none of it. You can pay some of it. Okay? Now, most financial advisors will advise you to pay it all up front if you are going to staircase up. However, you don't know what the future is going to hold. You don't know whether or not financially you're going to be able to afford to staircase or even stay in the property, especially with the way the world is spinning at the moment. So we didn't pay any stamp duty, and if we staircase to 100%, we will pay what it costs for stamp duty at the time. The minimum stamp duty, I don't know what it is at the moment, like the threshold for paying stamp duty, but you only pay for the amount after that amount of the property value, if that makes sense. The next pro is you have a support from a housing association. So if something wasn't to go to plan or the builders wouldn't fix something, it is also their responsibility to sort it out. It's not just on you, it's on them as well. So you have that extra bit of support from somebody else, from another body who has access to legal advice. Big one. The ability to staircase, big pro. You don't have to be shared ownership forever. You can staircase up to 100%, as we did in the flat. You know, it's great. It just gives you a bit more freedom of being able to financially afford a property. The value could go down. This is a pro if you want to staircase. If for whatever reason the housing market is dropping, that is the time that you want to buy the remaining shares of your property. You will be able to buy the remaining shares of your property cheaper than what them shares would have worked out to if you had bought it when you first bought the initial share of your property. Now, the flip side of this is, moving on to the cons, the value could go up and then you might not be able to afford to buy the remaining shares of your property. It is all relevant to the market at the time that you choose to purchase the remaining shares. And just because you get a valuation or you express your interest to buy the rest of the property, it doesn't mean you have to do it. Now, they might try and push you into buying the remaining it, but if you can't, if you feel like it's too much of a stress, then don't do it. You will regret it. If you can do it, you won't regret it at all. The next con is you do have to pay rent, which, you know, is dead money. But that depends on the share that you initially buy as to how much rent you would pay and the value of the property. The next con is you do have to have a different mortgage offer as to what you would if you were buying a house outright. So your interest rates are slightly higher, although to be completely honest with you, it wasn't for this property. It was for our first home, but it wasn't for this property. I'm not sure if it was a first time buyer thing that the interest rates were slightly higher for us than they would have been if we would have bought outright. Just something to think about and to ask about. And the last con is it can be very expensive to buy the next share up, as discussed before. So having to pay solicitors' fees again, having to pay the additional stamp duty, having to pay this and that, and so on and so forth. Just really think about it before deciding to buy in 25%. On our previous property, we waited till we could buy the rest to make it 100% and just did it in one shot. Which actually did make it easier when we came to sell the property as to what it would have done if we would have sold it as a shared ownership property. So there are lots of things to think about there. It is a very, very, very confusing thing to do. But there's lots of information out there, and definitely get in touch with both home stepper providers and shared ownership housing association providers and ask them questions before you commit to anything. There is no harm in doing that. It doesn't cost anything, but they will be able to advise you on what their policies are and how it works for their particular company. So that leads me on to which one do we prefer? They both have their pros and cons, but I would definitely say we prefer the home stepper, which is what we are doing now. We are, you know, mixed within other houses that are also home stepper and fully owned outright. So no one would ever know that we were shared ownership. I feel like on our last estate, everyone knew who was shared ownership and who was social housing because of the way the houses were laid out. They were all together. And yeah, I felt like there was a bit of discrimination there. But with this property, it's not like that at all. I have to say, I love this house. It is, I still pinch myself every single day that I'm living here, that this is my house and that we are living in a 4-bedroom house. And we bought it. The overall price for this property was not much more than what we sold our flat for. We sold our flat for 320,000. We bought it for 225,000. So we actually made like 95 grand equity or something ridiculous like that, which is insane. We didn't put all of that down as a deposit. We put £70,000 down as a deposit. But to be honest with you, any day of the week I would choose home stepper over housing association. But that's what's right for us. That might not be right for you. We have a child. If you don't have a child, housing association might be a better option for you if it's in the area that you want to live in. So have a little think whether you like an older property or a newer property, because that will also influence who you go with and who you go down. But I think I'm going to leave that vlog here today, guys. I'm sorry about the switching and starting. My camera is it's had enough of the heat. It's too hot, and I'm currently sitting in the corner of an office, which is also a wardrobe. But thank you for watching this vlog today. Please check out my other budget living videos over on my YouTube channel. And yeah, please subscribe because it does help me to keep providing free content. And yeah, I really love providing it for you. So yeah, give us a subscribe, give us a like, and please comment if you have any questions. I will be more than happy to answer from my perspective. See you later, bye!